Hi, I'm Chris DeLeon, the co-founder of DevPods. It's an online community of people who build games together, mostly beginner intermediate range, and freeware stuff for portfolio, for fun, because they just have teammates to creatively explore their interests together. I'm going to give you a tour in this video of kind of just behind the scenes, what it looks like, what happens in the onboarding, what's in the Discord, answer some common questions, confusions people have about it to figure out if it's for you, right? This is not fundamentally a sales video. My job is not to persuade you of anything. My job is to help lay out, here's what it is. If that interests you, we're doing it. And if it doesn't, bless you, thrive out there, be happy, I want you to live your life. So if you haven't yet seen DevPods GG, my person co-running this with me, Tim Ruswick, he's a much clearer and efficient communicator than I am. He's a better public speaker than I am. He has helped me arrange that information on that page that I struggled for so many years to get across succinctly. Check out devpods.gg first. That will help contextualize a bit about what's going on. A lot of this is going to be going more into the behind the scenes detail, assuming you've looked at that. I bet a bunch of you probably saw that page first, Googled to figure out what happens inside there, found this video, and that's who I'm here to mostly try to address and speak to. So at a high level, there's different ways to look at it. I think the easiest way to explain it, if I can give you a real quick detour through the backstory and why some of the confusion is about our difficulty explaining what it is it's kind of a few things overlapping. Two things are true about DevPods. One, it started just this last summer. It's been going for several months. That is when Tim and I got together and shaped it into what is now DevPods. Now, the other thing that's equally true is DevPods has 10 years of history, kind of 20. It evolved from a type of business I've been running under a few different names, starting in California and then out here in Boston. It went through stages of being LA game devs that met in a public library. But I refer to this as pickup style game development, where it's like people in the neighborhood are doing it. Someone's like, oh, I'm making a space shooter, who's in? Someone's like, oh, I'll make some ships. I'll do some sounds. And just kind of get on board, low pressure, low key. All non-commercial stuff, no paywalls, internet purchases, keeps the pressure down, makes people free to kind of take chances. People are here for different reasons. Some people it's just a creative outlet. Some people are educational enrichment, portfolio reasons, just social. But, no people here for exactly the same reason. There's no bosses in here. We're all kind of using servant leadership style. So the project leads really are trying to create opportunities for others and find ways to weave together their stuff in a nice way. They're not like, hey, everyone make my game for me.
The principal game mode would be a scavenger hunt / survival game. So the weekly schedule I have planned out.
It became an online group called the Gamketo Club. It became Home Team Game Day for a bunch of years, but it was getting really complicated, hard to explain. So what Tim and I did together was we helped kind of reformulate kind of a grand reopening, if you will, exploring, can we make it as affordable as possible by pruning away all the stuff that was getting too complicated, wasn't really speaking to what was the best thing we did that helped people out. And that is what DevPods is today at DevPods GG. So a little bit of backstory about when I say 10/20 years, really this format kind of started. So this is Game Creation Society. This is a Carnegie Mellon game creation club that I helped establish 21 years ago. Dragon Shielding, I was the lead. Shadow Storm, I was the lead. Rider Rollers, I was the lead. I came up with the pitch process, our format, our structure, our meetings, and so on. That part of what had happened was people at that school, and it's a good school, some top CS students and whatever, going off into careers. We had people who were saying that the club experience helped them more in the career than the classes did. And I was like, oh, that's so great. Felt so good about establishing this. This group is still running 21 years later. I still have in touch with some of these alumni over the years. Still cranking out, 7 or 8 games in parallel every single semester. Their format's changed a bit, but it's still going. That's awesome. And again, they're literally student projects, right? There's people who come together. Not all of them are in games, careers, paths, interested. Some are just mechanical engineers, writers, theater people. And this is a cool, fun thing they do with their friends to meet people and socialize. Went off to in game industry for a few years. I was electronic arts on some console games as a technical game designer. I did some early hired a company that became PopCap San Francisco. It wasn't that when I was with it under that moniker. ZipZap Play, if you ever played Playcrafter when you were younger, online game building tool for people. And then I made some iPhone games that did really, really well for a publisher, and I learned some early business lessons in my life. Then I went off to grad school because I wanted to help people. That was just an important part of my in my blood. I want to help people. That's something that would be really satisfying to me. So I went off to grad school kind of with interest in educational games and games that might help people learn concepts. And while I was spending semesters in research labs making games about trying to get across some abstract notion of, how people reason about processes or what's happening in the news or whatever, I realized that on the side, I had just started another game club because I know how to do that, right? We ran at Carnegie Mellon, successful people. Started this one, VG Dev, over at Georgia Tech. And it was consistently, again, same thing of people producing 5 to 8 games in teams every single semester, doing this weekly update rhythm, same kind of format, a little kind of a slight iteration on the format. But overall, that has also continued going for so many years. And after I finished my master's and I was a PhD student teaching in classes, I realized that on the one hand, I was spending all this time in these labs trying to make educational games to help people understand concepts. On the same time, people on these teams they were teaching themselves really complicated math concepts, technical programming skills, but also like creative abilities. They were going outside the bounds of things that normally would fit into their life path to learn how to do, because they wanted their car to spin cooler when it hit an obstacle, because they wanted the explosions to look better in space. And beyond that, also there's other just general practical skills of like long-term planning and coordinating with people who have different backgrounds, interests, and goals than us. And I was like, oh my God, this feels great. I want to dedicate my life to helping people do this kind of thing. And that is what I've done every year. So like for the decade since this one was started, was running this as my main work, was helping to facilitate this for people who want the benefits of these kind of clubs, college clubs, honestly, but like don't have a life situation to quit their day job, go to a university for 4 years, paying tuition, right? These are free clubs if you're a student there. A lot of people's lives aren't that shape. And a lot of my work has ever since been adapting that, and that's what DevPodsGG is. And again, it has gone through several names and rebrands and tweaks over the years. If you want to see our games, devpods.gg/games will get you there. It'll redirect to this longer itch URL. And what you're going to see there is every single game. They're all freeware, right? They're also no budgets. People aren't spending money on paying contractors for art or music or professional grade programming or whatever. It is just people come together and say, hey, I'm interested in trying Blender, even though it's not my main strength. I'm interested in writing some code, even if it's not my main strength. Your game has to your challenge. Can we solve this together? That's our vibe. And you'll also see we have really detailed credits. That's an important part of our culture where people get specific credit for what they did. And this enables a lot of great things. Like we have a huge skill disparity with people who went to grad school to train in the skills they're using in their jobs. They also use in our groups. They want to have coexisting peacefully. My first Blender model, my first bit of code, because someone can look at the credits and see who did what. It avoids misattributing blame. It's also, we don't have any filter on who can come into the group. We want anybody who wants to learn, is willing to kind of come along and figure things out together to be part of it. So we make that available for people. And again, that helps that, including also in disproportionate amounts of involvement. Any given project probably has 3, sometimes 4 or 5 people who are substantially involved consistently. A lot of other people bounce around and do a little thing here and there, just kind of browsing around. That's one of the things that makes our approach really kind of weird and hard to explain. And it's one of the reasons why we're still trying to figure out how to best get these ideas across, because the DevPodsGG page spells it out pretty good, but there's still weird things about mechanically. As you're going to see as I walk you through the tour or onboarding, how it works, even though we use the word teams, because it's what people tend to understand a group project to be, it's not like you're assigned a team. And this is actually really important to me, because my fear, if I was ever looking at some sort of online group collaborative thing, is worrying about like, what if I get assigned the wrong game? What if I don't want that genre, that engine? I don't like that team lead. I don't like the teammates, whatever. We don't do that. You're not assigned a team. You don't even actually pick a team. Every single week, any given time in your dev pod, which is a group of members like you, up to maybe around 50 to 80 people in a group, depending on their level of activity. And so within that group, that's not like one game. That's like a cluster of projects, anywhere from 3 projects on the low end to there's going to be, right now we've got 7 in dev pod A. There's going to be 8 as of this weekend. And then in a few weeks, 2 of those are going to release. So we're back down to 6. You got the gist. Any given week, you can just pick any project going on. It's kind of a shopping menu of updates from the leads to see what's going on and see what projects you feel like getting involved in. One week you might do some level design on that game. Another week you might do some sounds on this other game. Another week you might try some programming puzzles on this other project. Whatever interests you, but you're picking. And this means you can do whatever interests, like you want to learn a skill, you're curious to try it out. It would help your portfolio to show something. There's none of this kind of haggling. Like when I was in my early career in electronic arts and I was on one floor working on one game, I really wanted to figure out how to get to another floor on a different game because that'd be better for my career. If the game appealed to me better. It's really hard to navigate professionally. And or if I want to deviate outside my core strength thing there, I was there for a very specific pigeonhole that I was professionally background as a rapid prototyper, technical game designer. So that was my strength there. If I wanted to make music, sounds, whatever, I didn't get to. They have other professionals who handle very, very specialized things. I respect it. In our environment, everybody does whatever they want, outside their skill training, outside their qualifications, for their own curiosity, whatever interests them. And we'll even have games that kind of like, they might take an overkill approach to engineering, but it helps someone's portfolio. It might be the wrong approach to art to fill a whole game, but they just want to show off a certain art style. We're going to find a way to make it work in that smaller space or whatever. Our games exist for helping the members achieve their goals. So that's one of the key distinctions that makes our group different. Again, they're all freeware, etc. The other thing to keep in mind about all this is that everyone owns their own stuff. And this is actually different from if you were making a game at a university. In many cases, and I understand there's reasons why at that level of legality that's going on, the university might even actually own it. This applies to a lot of school projects, a lot of things done in the studio labs, etc. That doesn't sit right with me. Everyone owns their own stuff in our groups. And this includes, so if you are a project lead, you do a bunch of the code, you do a bunch of the stuff, that's still fundamentally, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want with the stuff you did and made. That is not true about what anyone else contributed to the project. They own their own things too. So if we've had this happen, right? Someone did songs for some of our games. They sold their own songs on iTunes. Great, amazing, awesome, we love it, right? That's cool. No one else could sell their songs, but the person who did the songs could. If someone does art for some of our games, and not only want to show their portfolio, they want to sell it on TurboSquid, they want to put it in the asset store, awesome. You could do that with your models. No one else can do that with your models. If you write code in a project you want to reuse in some commercial project in your future, you can do that with your code. You don't automatically get rights to anybody else's stuff. And think about this, right? So, because this example comes up all the time, people trying to think about why does this make sense? Let's say someone in our group, the way it works, they hey, you know what? I want to get Infinite Runner. I played this kind of game in high school. It was a flash game at the time. I always thought a riff, it would be cool if it was like, goblins and gremlins or something. People chip in together, make that thing happen. And then someone on that team, whether the lead or somebody else, decides, hey, I want to take this thing, put it on the asset store, strip it down. It's an Infinite Runner starter kit. If they think they're going to use someone else's music, someone else's art, someone else's code, that is a conversation between them to sort out. They could buy the rights to it. They can make an arrangement. They could do some sort of percentage arrangement. That is a legal thing between them. Also, we have members all over the world. We have people throughout Europe. We've had people over the years. I'll even throw a map up on the screen, all over the earth. The logistics of how to navigate that across international boundaries, the terms, et cetera, is not something we can facilitate or are responsible for. But we also, again, I don't own it. Tim doesn't own it. The company doesn't own it. The lead doesn't own it. Each person owns their own things. If you ever want to buy out the rest of something, you could. In practice, realistically, none of this is paid fidelity work, right? This is all amateur, part-time, on the side, to our own level of curiosity and polish. No one's pushed around or told what to do. People pick their own tasks, and when they feel like they're done as they want to be with it. Realistically, it's not a big point of stress, but it is one of the questions that comes up. So I want to acknowledge people own their own stuff, and that is important to us in how our group works. So let's continue forward and talk about if you sign up for DevPod.gg, and again, assume you've already read that page, one of the first things you're going to see is when you log in, you're going to see an onboarding course. And someone asked, can we make our onboarding public? And kind of good, but it's several hours of training that's adapted from like my best-selling video course, right? So my best-selling video course, which right now at the moment this video is Black Friday sale going on, so it's super discounted. But rabbit, if you see this video, that is a thing I have spent so many years training people in, is how we've released all these games on time, right? 500 games across these different communities I've established have released on time. And these are like several month projects with mostly beginner teams, not established, experienced people. That's a thing I am an expert in. We have an adapted version of that rolled up in our onboarding. We'll get to that in a second. So anyway, that's part of why our onboarding isn't totally public, but I can give you a tour of kind of what's in there. This is what we're here to achieve. I'll also show you behind the scenes what happens in our Discord, since that's where the main action happens. Speaking of which, the first part of our onboarding, this part's real short. Tim mostly prepared this part, kind of help transition you into just joining the Discord. We have a process where you'll message with a bot. It will connect you to access based on your subscription. You'll be able to see the stuff in the channels. We have an intake form that helps us figure out. So as we grow, the idea of what makes something a dev pod is it's a group of people who are like, let's say again, like 50 to 80 people. It's really hard to be person 150 to a group. You can't find your way in there. You get lost in a sea of faces. No one can tell if you come and go, whatever. It's really actually easier to find your identity in a group of 30 people, 50 people, where you can be the person who has a certain approach to Blender, certain skills or strengths in Unity or Unreal to stand out, certain things that help figure out where your place is socially in that group. And so a dev pod, it's not a single project, it's a group of projects, but it is a consistent community where when people have a question, you help each other understand it. You know that going forward, you're going to have a better teammate also on other projects, right? We're more likely to kind of take time to slow down a bit and really kind of invest in each other in that way. It's not like a one-off interaction I'll never see people get on Reddit or whatever. It is a chance to really kind of get to know others in a deeper fashion. That's what a dev pod is. At the moment, so we have only one core dev pod that's most of our activity. We're kind of concentrating in one place while we're figuring out some of this new model. You'll get instant access to that. As we grow this intake form, the function it serves is you'll let us know, are you looking mainly for Unity, Unreal, or Godot? Are you looking for certain type of like slow puzzle game? Are you really interested in RPGs and story and adventure? Are you interested in certain action kind of stuff? Let us know. And then we'll be like human coordinating based on the projects going on in a certain dev pod, based on the other members in that dev pod, based on that group lost a chiptune composer, so you'd be really valued over there. Where can we match you up with a group so you're set up to like have a great onboarding experience? People are appreciating you. You're filling a gap that on a number of teams. People are looking for like stuff like you. You line up and there's a project you can like go straight into it. Just as a good match for you. Begin. We're not assigning you a project. We're just matching you to here's a group of projects in a community that based on your intake form, we see would be a good fit. At the time of this video, you're going to get through really fast though, because again, it's going to instantly connect you to our community, depending on how many people have joined by the time you decide to join us. Next up, this is the main part everybody kind of encouraged to watch. These videos aren't long. These are probably just like 5-10 minutes at most, probably shorter in most cases. They're walking you through how to get involved in our projects. The first part we explain is a tour, a bit like what this video is. Next, talk about why we don't use found assets or GenAI. This is a big question people have for us. Because what's often happening is a lot of people, this is their first group projects. They're used to working solo. And when they're working solo, they're often having to kind of go out there and scoop up, what can I grab off the asset store? What can I find off Kenny NL? What can I find at Kevin McLeod, whatever? And there's nothing wrong with any of those. Like, those are fine things to do, right? But the difference is here, we want to facilitate interactions between people and skill growth. So rather than, hey, I need a song, I'll just go scoop something off in Compotech, which is fine music. We'd rather have like, okay, well, one of us is either going to use Beatbox to figure it out, or we can keep an opening and kind of look around. Maybe we'll spot in our team of like, hey, I really like the song you did this. What do you have for joining us over here? Inviting them to it. It's a chance to facilitate interactions between each other. It's also, it gives us more control over what vision are we trying to achieve. We don't wind up working backwards from, had this guy I worked with many years ago. He's a brilliant guy, but he was working with like an asset pack for dinosaurs for his dinosaur game. And he wound up not having some dinosaurs he wanted, but having different dinosaurs he didn't want because that's what was in the asset pack. That's like backwards, right? We want you to think about what do you want in your game. We'll figure out, rather have a rough version that fits our aesthetic that we can do, that we can tweak, that we can adapt, that we can match the quality and style of. That's where that comes in. Same thing for where GenAI. I know it's an evolving space, but we do not have GenAI art or audio or writing in our games. We want that to be an opening, an invitation for someone else to either like pick up Blender, pick up Photoshop, or connect with another teammate and learn to navigate those differences. Like you have different skills, training, insights, see different issues and challenges. We can coordinate and overcome that. We grow through that, and that's really our fundamentally we're here for our own growth first and foremost. The game's kind of our means to do that. Those just get in the way of our collab, human-made environment. I'll put an asterisk on that. Among programmers, and this is already deeply throughout the ecosystem, it's cooked into their IDEs. It's when they used to go for answers online to Stack Overflow or whatever. Some of those spaces are getting lower quality because of GenAI stuff impact on the programming ecosystem. There are absolutely programmers who, we couldn't even stop this, troubleshooting their code, etc., through something like GPT, Claude, whatever kind of options are out there in their IDEs, Copilot, etc. That's a part of the ecosystem, unfortunately. So again, I cannot guarantee there's like no one in our group is not touching AI. If they're a programmer, they might be asking it questions. I don't know. We generally, again, like we couldn't tell from inspecting the code, but we do, again, don't want GenAI art, audio, etc. Out of all the games released from our communities over the years, there were one or two projects where when the new, this stuff was so relatively new, a couple members were just like curious to explore it and kind of just find out like, hey, could we integrate this process? What's the workflow like? It was still very, very early on. A lot of the things we now know about it weren't really in the discourse. And what we found was teammates and leads didn't like it. It devalued the game in their portfolio. As soon as, even if it was like one or two little icons in a menu or something, just kind of out of the way, as soon as anybody sees that, their next thought is like, did you do any of this? Right? And it devalues the work of the human beings involved. So we'd, again, rather have like, make a crummy MS Paint picture before you'd grab that stuff and take ownership over it. So anyway, that's just a quick note on that. Also, another note, even if it's, again, public domain, even if it's Creative Commons 0, same thing applies. We'd rather have someone in our groups learn to fill that gap and have the game be full of stuff we've made. Every now and then we might use like a space picture from NASA if it fits the context, but it's a pretty kind of rare case-by-case thing. Anyway, we make our own stuff as best we can. Setting up GitHub in your credits name. GitHub is a point a lot of people have friction with. We use it in a way that's as simple as possible. It actually kind of, we use it in kind of the middle fashion. We have engineers who come from very, very full process use of GitHub who kind of get annoyed that we simplify it down because they want to do all kinds of other branching and code review, etc. We also have in our community a lot of folks who like, they don't ever want to be software engineers. They don't mainly want to program. They're mainly artists, audio people, writers, voice actors, and like all kinds of other people who they want to be able to integrate their work directly into the repo without going through all that stuff. And so we keep it as simple as possible. We have some best practices to reduce the risk of a code conflict that just kind of small incremental commits, making it real lightweight, the process we use. We guide people through that. And this is where, like just the other day, we had a new member who joined. He's for years been people bugging him to put his stuff in GitHub, and he finally did because he went through our onboarding, understands how simple it can be. Now all of us remote backed up. We feel good about that. So trying to train people in it because at the end of the day, right, if we were a swim club, GitHub would be the pool. You got to get in the water. And so trying to help people through the process. We also have newly a document that lays out probably 5-6 pages, screenshots, step-by-step about going through that process, answering common questions about GitHub. I know it's a point people are friction with. I've also been people who are really stuck on it. They can schedule calls, maybe walking through that, making sure people feel like they're comfortable with that process. We then talk about how to make a practice commit locally. We talk about how to do it with a real project. And everyone gets nervous about touching a team project with live code, stuff going on, goals, lead, don't want to upset anybody, etc. Try to remind people there are going to be some little mistakes. That's life. That's okay. That's part of the process. We can get untangled together. Right? I mean, the value of GitHub is we always have the history to compare to. We can fix anything. Don't sweat it. It's fine. People are just thrilled to have someone else getting involved with the project, so don't be scared of that. Next part specifically is how to find a task. This works into our system. You're going to see as we look behind the scenes in our tour about how our schedule works, about how people navigate, picking out what to do. But it is this different skill to develop where a lot of people are very used to in school and in work. Someone else told them what to do. Do this assignment by that date. Do this thing for this company to make a profit off of you. As opposed to here, you pick whatever you want to do, right? Whatever interests your portfolio, interests your skill, thing that just sounds fun or interesting to you, you do whatever you want to do. Now, that can be exciting. It can also be, for some people, a hard shift. And it's a little bit like, we're talking about a lot of Bethesda games, right? You step out of the vault, you step out of the cave, you step out of a sewer, whatever, and you got an open world in front of you. And you're like, phew, I kind of wish it would tell me where to go. I mean, that would almost be easier, right? But this is so valuable. And we have specific training on navigating task selection, and that includes occasionally come up with your own ideas, right? Because as we're going to look at the schedules and stuff, it's not as if a lead has a vision and everyone's like, well, we have a certain number of job roles to fill and that's taken and whatever. It is flexible on who wants to be involved and how involved they want to get. If you have ideas that weren't part of the original vision, often leads are comfortable hearing that out, saying, can we make that work without a lot of extra work for other people? It's flexible, but it's a way, once you have that lens, it empowers you so much to take control and steer creatively over what's going to serve your future, your interests, scratch your creative itches. It's fun for you, etc. No one tells you which projects, which roles. No one's vetting or qualifying or interviewing you for, are you good enough to whatever? We want your first Blender models, your first code, your first whatever. These are practice, freeware, lightweight, low-stress projects, kind of game jam energy, but on a longer schedule. And then we wrap up, and that's the last. So again, this part, you'd be ready now to fully onboard into projects. The next part, not all of our people watch, because this next part of our video, onboarding, is specifically if you want to lead a project. This could still be informative if you want to understand what's going on from that side. Historically, about a third of our members wind up being project leads. And a lot of people who lead a project wind up leading 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5, 7, 9 games over the years. There's a process we use that we've been training people and can iterate on now for 20 years about what goes into that pitch. We have a template slide you'll follow about a bit about your background. It's not about proving yourself. It's just helping you understand who is this lead. A bit about your vision for the game, some screenshots of other stuff, knowing that those had real budgets. We don't, but it might be like, I like the feel of Mech Warrior. I like the kind of like just a screen was covered in chaos in this other game. I want to kind of recreate that feel with particles. And then showing the prototype, showing the schedule. It's pretty lightweight. These pitches are often like 10 minutes long, not a lot of detail to it. You don't have to be on camera, but that's part of the process. This guides you through everything about how to build that schedule. And again, this scheduling part, this is adapted from same thing I teach in my sometimes best in category selling production course. The producer mindset's a different hat to wear than being an engineer, an artist, a writer, whatever. That's the thing a lot of my background was training for indies and clients and so on. That's all fully included here in an abbreviated form as it applies to games in this community. So you can learn that, you can practice that, you can apply that. It's what we've used for every single one of the 200 games we've released in 10 years. You will learn all of that in this onboarding. We then show you how to submit the form. So there's a form for this, and let me pull up that form to show you what's in there. On this form, when you submit stuff, it's basically, hey, I've been working on it, I've been tinkering on it. Here's, I'm open for feedback and thoughts, etc. You could also have a conversation with me earlier than this if you're just kind of curious about thinking about what would like to do. But this creates a space for making clear, okay, well, a lead isn't directing other people, right? They're not telling people, not a creative director sitting back being like, you do this and you do that. They are leading from the front, right? They are doing, in many cases, a lot of the load lift, and others are kind of bouncing around. We're going to talk more about the structure here in a moment as people float between stuff. Planned start and release date. We keep everything 2 to 6 months in schedule, typically 3 to 5, unless there's circumstances. Godot, Unity, or Unreal. Let's actually quick answer a few questions, because this might help situate you about what our group's about and the vibe. So any one of our leads is answering these questions. Will you find a way to release the best version you can on your target deadline? We don't crunch. We don't stress people. We don't pressure people. That said, we do try to make important. We want to release a version by the release date. It's one of our promises we try to maintain for our members. And so let's just make sure it leads on the same page of like, don't just casually add a month. Don't just casually say, hey, you know what, let's double the schedule. That's not fair to contributors to the project who did it under the agreement of, you can use my stuff in your project in exchange for, as I understand it, you said this game will release on March 15th. I want this game to come out March 15th with me in the credits. We were asking to make sure leads are on the same page. By the way, none of this is a legal document, right? This is not a contract. No one's suing you, no one's coming after you. This is to make sure, like, hey, you just want to make sure you're on the same wavelength. That's all. If you need to exit before release, who knows what happens in your life? Financial, life stuff, got to take priority. I respect it. Just double checking. Hey, it's okay if we carry the ball across the finish line. We being me or Tim or other leads in our community, we can tap on the shoulder and be like, hey, could you help this team across? Because there's kind of 2 months left and something really happened. It's only come up a few times out of hundreds of games over the years. It is a thing, though. It helps make sure that there's sort of an insurance or a fallback plan. Any given person in our community, if they pop in, they do 1 or 2 things on a game, and they vanish into the night, and we never see them again, we made a promise to them that a game would come out with their work included if we all could on that date. We'll make sure you have some confidence of like, okay, and you understand that on the same page, if we had to, we could help bail you out of that situation. Leads posted weekly updates part of the expectation. It is short. It could be 3 to 5 minutes. Some people do them longer, 10, 15, 20. They don't have to be. But it's past, present, future. Here's what happened in the past week. Here's what's our current game we're running so you can see what it looks like. In the next week, here's what we're mainly focusing on. Join us in the channel if you're interested. Just establishing that as an expectation for everyone who's leading a project. You don't have to be on camera, but that's how those are done. We make free games, right? You can reuse your own parts and what you make, but not anything done by teammates, like we said. If you want to sort this out between other people after the fact, you can. We discourage focusing on that. We think that's premature. This is basically kind of a prototyping proof of concept, freeware game jam scale. Don't get ahead of yourselves too much. We want to make sure we establish that is the expectation. If you are a lead, you do not own the stuff people are doing on the project. Again, you are all peers here. They are members as well, just chipping in, giving permission for you can use my portfolio piece connected to your portfolio pieces because they look better in all of our portfolios. We'll learn better. We'll enrich each other's experience, but everyone owns their own stuff. Teammates link to games in their portfolio, so please keep it online. Well, we've had people come through our groups who now they're in industry. They're professional gameplay engineers, professional game designers, professional variety of other fields. And in these kind of cases, Let's say that it's been 7 years and like, actually, I'm kind of embarrassed about my beginner work I used to do in that freeware group. Hey, would you take my game offline? Or of course, if they were the lead, it's in their itch portfolio where we're asking like, please keep it up there, if only because so many other people contributing to the game want to show it in their portfolio, right? Don't destroy their portfolio, ripping out a whole chunk of proof of the thing that they worked on. We're just asking, please keep it online if you can. And again, none of this is a contract. None of this is legally binding. This is, if life gives you a reason like, oh God, I'm really embarrassed, but think I have to remove it for whatever, fine. It's a bummer. Wish it didn't happen, but make sure you know that that's not the plan, mainly, right? Okay, so going back to our tour, you got the gist there what goes into project leading for the most part. We'll see a better example when we pop into the Discord here soon. And then the final is some stages about how to do we do all of our games releases on itch. If you also want to develop something for Steam, it usually takes a few extra months. We've had a few games do that. It is typically case by case, not a great use of the energy, to be blunt. In terms of itch is often a better fit for this scale and fidelity of polish and investment, etc. That said, again, there's a couple cases that have done it. Especially if you've already released a game on itch and wanted to do a repitch. So one of the ways we can support a longer project, for example, let's say you release a game in dev pods, and we've had this, happen a few times over the years, and you're like, you know what, I really, really liked, I felt good about making it, it was cool, it came together, we released a version on time, I kind of wish I could keep working on it, right? I gave it 4 months, I really want to give it like kind of 8 months total. You can absolutely do a repitch. You could take the game you already released, and be like, hey folks, doing a new pitch, 1.5, 2.0, director's cut, whatever, we're going to add some more spaceships to it, we're going to add some more levels to it, etc. A couple notes. Again, any lead can do this with your own game. We just staple the credits of the old game on as to like, hey, check out this other game. These other contributors help this thing get going in that kind of case. It is also something where a lot of people start a project expecting it's going to happen. By the time they get done to their 5th month, they're like, honestly, I'm restless. I want to move on to another idea now, in which case, that's why we don't promise that ahead of time or create the expectation or pressure on themselves. It's also fine to do like a small post-release patch. And this is where often a game will be nearing release. We try to hit our deadlines as best we can for release. And so, okay, there's a part I really want to include, some cool work I want to do, but it's kind of broken, it's crashing the game. Just comment it out for release, put the game up on date, and then whether it's a week or 2 weeks later, 2 months later, when you've kind of had a chance to kind of just chill, recover, back on your feet, whatever, if you want to fix that, update it on itch, whatever, it's post-release update. We still release the game on time, you got your fixed version, you didn't have to do a full repitch, but that's one of the shapes you can take. And so it is a form of, especially if a game comes out on our itch freeware, put a version out there like a game jam, it exists and you feel good about it, and you're really like, you know what, this one has, I think, potential, we should put this one on Steam, we can have the conversation about the extra work that goes into preparing that. It, again, tends to add a couple extra months for just a variety of, it needs more capsule art, more descriptions, and there's a lot more lift. We've had a couple, again, it's not always a great fit, but it's a thing that's technically an option, even though itch is mostly where our stuff goes. Anyway, playtesting forum, pretty lightweight. It's basically helping figure out, can people not see the cool stuff in your game because they didn't realize what the inventory key was, or you could double jump, or how to open doors, etc. Those help us identify some little last minute snags. It's not a full, I'm not saying this is the best way you should test everything. You should ideally test throughout if you can. Realistically, this just helps us catch some last minute fixes that might not be a lot of work, but make sure people can see the rest of your game. We do our detailed credits as what guide you through with a real example. I think I use Artillery Rampage here for how to do it, of how to go through the GitHub history, how we chunk tasks together, right? It's not like a one-to-one to make accurate credits people can browse and read. Again, if you want to see those, devpods.gg/games will take you to our full list. You can see all the credits and how we compile them to understand that. And then we wrap up, keep going back to making games. And that's the cycle, right? And fundamentally, we try to manage as best we can the process. So people in our groups just want to focus on making games because make games. And because we're not burning people out, we're not pushing people, there's no outside expectations and no pressures on it, whatever. We have had people who've led a game, released a game, the next week pitched another game because they weren't burnt out. They weren't crispy. They weren't sad or demoralized or frustrated or feeling pushed about it. They're just having fun making games. And we want to create a space that makes that possible and supportive. And they know they're going to have teammates show up. Stuff's going to come together. When they say that this project's worth 3 months or 5 months of my life, that's when the game's going to come released because they've learned these habits that help them enforce that, and this processes that make it successful for them. So into the next stage, we're going to dig over into the Discord, which I'm excited about. I know this part some of y'all are looking forward to because really the action happens. After these onboarding videos, everything basically takes place in the Discord, so follow me over there. All right, so if I walk you through the process here, I can give you a tour at a high level, but first let's imagine that you just joined, right? You went to devpods.gg, you subscribed, you're going to join the Discord. You're first going to get a message from our bot that's going to check what email address did you subscribe with. It's then going to connect to your account so you have access. After that, you'll see around the time you'll see our rules. Quick walk through these, and these might evolve, right? But we can only work with adults, and there's reasons for this about ownership rights and about we can't moderate direct interactions between members, etc. So that's just our current situation at our current scale. We aim to be supportive, of course, harassment free. You got the gist about those. We release free games. We're real clear about that. We credit you by how your display name is in GitHub, so you're in control of what name you in credits. You want to avoid your last name, you want a nickname, whatever, up to you. You want to use an online alias. We make clear parts of work in progress at DevPods shows up in screenshots or video. That includes community Discord chat potentially, in social media posts, portfolios, community promotion material. Just like this, we're like, I didn't clear with everybody like, hey folks, I'm about to run around the camera in our office over here, I don't know what chat you're going to see. Honestly, I don't. Now, it won't be terrible because we have these basic rules in place, but it is something where any given time, people in our groups can and are showing on their tweets, on their Facebook post, on LinkedIn, look at this cool thing I'm working on, and they're not having to get permission from anyone else on the team about their assets in the background or whatever else they're asking the lead. Everyone has built-in permission. Show your stuff work in progress. We've had people who joined our group who gets, so she's an audio professional with a bunch of years experience. Her work all got tied up in projects either got canceled or at NDAs, couldn't show her work in her portfolio. Joined our group for a few months to show in her portfolio, look, I can do digital interactive. Here's some examples that aren't locked up in NDA. Got herself her next job, said goodbye to us. That was fine. Wish her well. Wonderful out there. But you do not have the problem here about non-disclosure agreements tying up your stuff. We make clear again, no external assets, even public domain or CCO or generative audio text, like we said. We want things to be built by our teammates. That's an important part of our kind of shared cultural values in our group. Video updates by leads, maybe people not currently in dev pods, but people who join later can still go back and scroll and see those videos. Every now and then we show little clips and pieces. Like my last video on this channel is one of our example updates weekly with like some 6-second cuts of some of these videos, just showing like a gameplay examples of what's going on in there. And the lead's face might be in the corner or something, not a big deal, but just kind of heads up. Again, even if we make these mainly for our internal audience, occasionally clips may be seen externally as a reminder to people. No spam or self-promotion, right? This is not, honestly, what this helps drive out, there are people, and maybe you've seen some of those online. Instead of having a collaborative attitude of let's get together and make things together, learn from each other, and we're all equal here, etc., they just want to post updates about their own solo stuff. And they're not, I'm not saying that they're a bad person, but they're not very conducive to a team collaborative community environment. That's not a good match. This is not a place. So like, let's say you've been working for months on something, you release it, and you make one post about it. Sure, that's fine. That's totally cool. Like, that's chill. Whatever, that's cool. We can't be as someone's blog for like their updates on their own personal outside thing. People here want to talk about the games they're able to do together, right? That's what they're here to do. To share the excitement of here's things we are all sharing. And even if I'm not on the team yet, I could be on that team. That is our dynamic here. It's what we're about. So that's what that's saying. Again, also trying to protect you from some spammer showing up and contacting you about some whatever scheme. No stalking and threats, you get it. Maintain a professional environment as best we can. Just being mindful of, and again, this is sort of like we have people all over the world. That includes people from many different cultural backgrounds, many different religious beliefs, many different sort of traditions. And I understand that we're all adults in the conversation. At the same time, again, kind of professional standard helps us just avoid things that would stress people out or make them feel alienated. And this were personally, genuinely, deeply my belief, is that a lot of us, even if we might disagree on little things in our own lives, maybe even big things in our own personal lives, etc., when we work together, when we solve challenges together, when we gain a deeper appreciation from your art made the thing that I was programming come out looking better and people understood it. Your sound did this. Your coding, a different kind of coder than me, but the way that's meshed together, I appreciate and respect that. Deepens our bonds in important ways that then helps us understand and have those important conversations in other contexts. To me, that has to begin from when we work together, we solve together, we don't start from a bias of, because we're talking about some of those alienated or upsetting, now I feel like we can't be teammates. I feel like that makes it harder to have that sort of enrichment experience. So that's the shape of our group. We just try to not upset people here if we can, knowing full well, again, there's a huge range of what that means. Just trying to be mindful, respectful, here to make games, right? And if you see something makes you feel unsafe, let us know. We're going to do something about it. We are a curated, actively moderated space. That's what we're here to do. So anyway, so you see the rules. Sorry to go over the weeds. It might evolve over the years, but mainly what you're going to see, all pods, that's people in any dev pod. I keep saying dev pod is a cluster of people with a cluster of projects. So if you get dev pod A as our example right now, it's got 7 active projects, and 8th one's going to pitch this weekend. It's got a weekly updates channel, current games. You can browse about the different weekly schedules and stuff. You can click on which engines are which. But each pod is a separate set of community, human beings, and projects, but the same fundamental process and structure. The all pods channel is anybody from different dev pods together. So if you have a help question about how to do something in Godot, Unity, or Unreal, or Blender, or Music Tool, or whatever, anyone in any community might be able to answer that help question. So the help channel is for everybody. That's a shared space across any dev pod. As opposed to the people who are sharing a certain set of games, we find that by making these sort of split up, it makes it more manageable. And we saw this too in our college clubs. If a group in one of these college clubs I ran had 15 games going, you couldn't pay attention to all the stuff going on. We found that basically it's kind of a sweet spot between kind of 3 and 9-ish, where after that's kind of hard to keep track of. You just kind of, they all get lost in too big of a list. When maintaining like a human scale community, people get to know each other, find their place in it. That's why each dev pod's separate. And again, if you join us at the moment, we're concentrating activity in our dev pod A, we're kind of proving out this model, figuring out, iterating, improving. You'll probably get added instantaneously to dev pod A. Over time, that intake form is going to help us sort which are just dev pod match. And if you join us after that, and you see this video, you may only see the all pod stuff first until me or someone else on staff can assign based on your intake form. oh man, they're going to be real happy over in this group because we know there are people in it. We've paid attention to the projects over there. It's going to be a good match for which you want, so you can slot right in, et cetera. Again, you're not assigning you a project. We're assigning you a community group where we figure out it's a good match for your intake form. But at the moment, you're probably going to join quickly on this Black Friday weekend coming up here on Thanksgiving. You'll probably get instant access to DevPod A, depending on, again, how quickly you sign up. So anyway, out of the things, of course, off topic, you get the gist of that. And that's just anybody just sharing stuff. I think I posted there the other day pictures. I take scope pictures of ducks. That's the thing I do for entertainment. I'm not like birding. I just spot like, oh, birds are cool. I like looking at them up close from a respectful distance. That inspired a conversation in our prototyping lab channel. This is a new experiment we're doing. So I can say a few things about this, but this answer might change. Let's say you're browsing the current projects and like you wanted to do Unreal, but the game that's being done in Unreal in the group you're in, you're not feeling that one. Monthly Prototyping Lab is a space where we try to support each other in like you figuring out the rough mechanics of what you have in mind. And let me even show like fidelity of that. So I've got here in my Quick Start Docs channel with some different resources, examples of, actually no, a new pitch game. There's our sort of resources here. Examples of pitch ready prototypes. Let me pull up this video. Where still like the prototype, right? It doesn't have to be high fidelity. The whole idea of the prototype is just testing out, exploring the concept. This is what Kelly did for a game she pitched in our group, Operation Sheepherder. Like things aren't animated yet, but like here's kind of the look. Here's kind of the camera angle. Here's kind of the distance. Here's the basic mechanics. And you can picture you have to talk over this. Oh, the stars are where such and such is going to be. That's where like the barn is, etc. Right? And you kind of guide people through it. This is one sort of showing like a theft art heist game. And like there's these ketchup bottles and it's kind of silly. But like the AI might not have worked yet. You kind of do this Wizard of Oz thing like, oh, if I got in their flashlight, then they would chase me. But the prototype channel is a space like Will McKay, and these days he's with Ripple Effect Studio, I believe. But like he was doing this like Star Fox type thing. So this is an example of his prototype, which is like just fiddling within Unity. All right, so it's kind of this like rolling, how do I go into the treadmill system? What's my basic AI? What's my camera perspective? Do I want the camera moving side to side or keep it stationary? And then as the game wound up, as it came together, let's see, where is that release version? There it is. A little clip here of how it shows. Yeah, you can see it kind of super awesome looking, but it began from the prototype. So the prototyping channel is just a space where we can kind of like shape those together, have dialogue, compare notes, trade things, trade strategies. Is there key questions on it looking at? We might have gray boxing about scale. If a game's fundamentally about a certain aesthetic, they might have like at least one animated model to show like the lead's capable of that sort of thing. And that's also, by the way, as a quick note here on scale and scope. When leads are planning, you'll hear it through our onboarding, our training. The basic rule of thumb is we aim our scope to be, if no one else showed up on the team, but they will, you could release a crude version of this on time, right? And then the hope is that as people show up, depending on what interests them, because someone else is going to do the track design, you can focus more on certain other pieces. Because someone else is going to do some sound effects, it will sound better, and you can focus on other pieces. But it means that the lead is versatile and able and ready to fill in those gaps, and not over-reliant on, well, I want to lead this game, but I can only do it if I have someone else who is an animator of human bodies. That's a hard skill not all people have. If you can find a co-lead, the other way to make that work is people sometimes will kind of like joint up together and say, on this pitch to make this prototype happen, the two of us together, one's covering the art side, one's covering the engineering side, etc. That happens. It's rare, but occasionally it does. But proves out the general concept. It's like, here's the prototype in this one, and there's like the finished game. The prototype was like fake hovering. The finished game was real hovering. Whenever you have networking stuff, which is rare because it's complicated, but like the prototype needs to show I have basic networking interactions working again. Plus, this is like scale environment. You got the gist. Anyway, that is what that channel is about, which again, it might evolve. There's a new initiative kicking off because my background in industry was a prototyping expert for Will Wright, for Electronic Arts, for that indie iPhone game that did well. I taught Northeastern University's prototyping classes a couple years ago in 2023. So we were cooking up a whole phase and process about how to make that successful with some new documentation and stuff. Not too soon to speak to it now because it's probably going to evolve. You got the gist. We got discussion channels and stuff. Now, speaking of which, I will say also, I want to acknowledge there's kind of different people in our groups, right? Different strokes, different folks. We all thrive when there's different people from different backgrounds, different goals and interests coming together in our communities. And one of the things you're going to see is that there's people who like they basically have, and this is the shape of me, kind of a makerspace or woodshop gym way of thinking about it. We're like, I go to gym to exercise, right? I go to the soccer field to kick the ball. I go to the makerspace to hack on electronics. I go to the wood shop to make things out of wood. I'm not mainly there to chat. Like, I'm not being antisocial or mean or rude or anything. It's just like, I want to go in there. I got only so many hours a week. I want to spend it doing this on game dev. I want to pop out and go into other stuff. Those people work fine in our community. They've got plenty of them. They thrive, especially our long-term people. You'll see that that's sort of sometimes their approach. Newer folks, or some folks are just more sociable, want to chat more. So we do have spaces for discussing the games that they're playing, for, again, general hangout chat. We've also been scheduling now currently every other week. So about, I guess twice a month, different times for different time zones. Voice hangouts, so people just want to like socialize, chat, get to know each other kind of at a non-productivity level. That might help some people too, kind of facilitate the communications they want to have on Teams, get to know each other better. It can help you, that thing where you hear someone's voice and then you see them type, you can better contextualize that's their humor or that's how they're explaining things, or they're being friendly, or even just language barrier things, right? It all comes across better. We can socialize a little bit. So there's a little bit of that, but not for everybody. If you want it, we have it. If you don't, you don't have to. You don't have to go to those hangouts. There's no mandatory stuff like that. Some people, again, pop in there, just get productive, pop in the channel. So anyway, taking us back here. So you join the group. The first thing I'd say, right, check out the weekly video updates. Every single week, this is where the leads post these videos of, here's what happened in the week behind us on GitHub. Here's the game running in its current shape. So if you're interested involved, here's what you're kind of expecting. And then the week ahead on our schedule, here's what we're looking at. Maybe make a few schedule adjustments. And that schedule, by the way, again, it's a starting point for conversation. So if you have other ideas, you could suggest to the team channel, especially if you're going to take ownership over it. We just don't want like a drive-by design person saying this would be cool and then hope other people do the work for them. People doing the work have their ideas too. But also it's like a menu or a refrigerator of stuff you could shop from the future. If there's something that's like later in the schedule when to do it, you totally could, but you don't have to wait until like it's that week. It's just by that date, if they don't have it, they're going to either cut it or make some other compromises, trade-offs, trade other cards for it. So anyway, you can browse the weekly updates. And these aren't long, these aren't complicated, these aren't formal. You say, hey, what's going on with these different projects? Does one of these interest me? Is there a way I'd want to get involved in that project that speak to me? And if it does, I next might go check out the current game's videos to browse and watch that video pitch to give me some context for what the lead have in mind, what was kind of the format, the approach they were looking for. Can I see myself being kind of like part of that? And if I'm on the same page, then I pop into the team channel and I would say, here's my GitHub username. I'm interested in being involved in this, mainly as a writer, mainly as a programmer, looking to do some art stuff. You mentioned the character art stuff. Is that still available? Whatever. And then thereafter, it's just a dialogue with the team, right? Of navigating, okay, well, they're trading notes, they're comparing stuff, they're discussing things in the channel. And that's it. And then, again, just because you've committed to something on a project, one, you could join a channel and then never contribute to the project. You're not obligated to do anything, and no one's telling you what to do. If you join a team, make one commit, and then never test the project again. You'll still be in the credits. No one's mad at you. You don't have to tell anybody you're leaving, switching teams, whatever. All good. You want to be on no teams? You want to go to the prototyping channel? Great. You want to get involved in every single team at the same time? Sure. Knock yourself out. You want to only do level design and travel design and puzzle design? Cool, you can. If you want to go versatile and do sound and art and code and whatever in engineering, you can. And again, these teams are not shaped like, oh, that's taken. The teams are shaped like, well, if you show up with that energy and that expertise and you're willing to take some ownership over it, leads are often comfortable with you kind of like adding additional stuff into their vision, as long as, again, will not somehow get in the way of what other people are doing and not throwing away work other people have been done, because we want to try to use what we can. That's what people are here to do. So that's kind of the vibe and the gist. It is very, very low time commitment. It's very flexible. Again, it works well for some busy people who just like want to chip in on stuff. They have limited time for game dev. They felt like the limited time they were doing on game dev was not coming together, releasing on time. They couldn't find teammates who things were finishing with, or things were just getting like bogged down and complicated. And some people trying to do some sort of project that seemed premature. It wasn't really publicly validated. It didn't have any sort of press recognition, support, funding, audience, whatever, but was trying to already like get ahead of, they're all like signing contracts about ownership and work expectations and pressures. And it just didn't feel like it's where they want to be. DevPod tries to create a space where it's just safe to creatively take experiments, try some stuff. People are understanding, patient with each other, figuring out, learning things together, trying new skills, doing what interests them. Some of it, people are like kind of like Bob Ross mentality. It's just fun to do. They're not even trying to get better at pixel art, programming, or whatever. This is a hobby for them on the side. That's valid. Some of our folks, they went to games school, got a degree, could not find a job, so they joined us for several months to add some games to their portfolio, filling in the time between to check some more boxes of certain genres that fit the studios they're applying to, or engines that show they can also do this other tool set or whatever. Also a fine way to use our group. But it is not primarily a development of commercial projects. My asterisk on that, right? And this is where a lot of people get into this stuff, and I understand where it comes from, and I, again, completely get it, right? If it's like, we want the things to reach an audience, we want things to be great, and that is, of course, what partly drives and excites us to do it. But there's a reality check that most of the indie games that we're enjoying on Steam, even the indie games, are like 6-figure budgets. In some cases, 7-figure budgets. Right? There's not like someone's throwing $4,000 of savings and competing at a serious level. I'm sure there's exceptions out there. Overwhelmingly, most of those projects no one hears about, they get like 20 Steam reviews. They're not selling. They're not making back their costs. People put years of effort into it. We are trying to create a space where people can just like tinker, experiment, make the game they want to make, and not feel like they overextended themselves. Like they spent 3 years on this project that really should have been like a 3-month project. They can explore, they can try things out, do different things. I will say, like, so an example I left for this, and I want to be asked clear at several things. Outer Wilds, I didn't work on it. I'm not part of it. This was not part of our groups. This is not a DevPods thing. I just love Outer Wilds, right? I used to have this big painting in my room of it. I just recently finished playing a DLC mod and the VR mod of it. I'm a huge Outer Wilds fan. I helped organize Indicate for several years, and one of those years, Outer Wilds came through as a student project, and this was the student project. This is a USC project. I will say a producer on this game was an alumni of my first college club that I helped start 21 years ago, so hello, Sarah, if you're seeing this. But you can see it's pretty crude looking. And again, I say this with all my heart because I love Outer Wilds so much. It looks worse than a lot of game jams. The fidelity is not the point. The polish is not the point. The showing off Because again, that takes time, that takes money, that takes budget. That is not what this was. This was a student project, a proof of concept. But the second you step into this rocket and you leave the planet, you turn around, you're just like, wow, I want more of this. This is amazing, right? And the fundamental story was there. The fundamental worlds were there. The fundamental mechanics, the gist and stuff were there. But it was not until they made this prototype together. It was just a student project. And most student projects are not going to go commercial. It's not the shape of the world for most people. But this game spoke to enough people. They're like, oh, there's something really here. They submitted it to IndieCade. That's again how I heard about it. It won like best in show, excellence in design. That helped them get connection to, they did a successful crowdfunding campaign. They were able to get a publisher deal that helped fund some real art, etc. And again, like when these things happen, there is a major shift in the hiring process, the structure, how everything's being handled. This is the game most people know Outer Wilds as. It's the same mechanically. It is so much more rich, so much more dense, so much more polished. The mainstream public can understand it. This sort of thing, right? The commercial version is not coming out of dev pods. We're not spending that kind of funding on these projects. They're just experimental proof of concepts, bobs in the water. That said, it is not out of the question that something like the student prototype version could come out of our group if someone's exploring that, out of which, if they make a thing in our group and they love it and they feel good about it and those people want to go on together, otherwise they could. Again, we would love to bless them. Hopefully the free version we have, it's like Baba Is You started as a free web game as well that helped prove the concept for like a commercial justification to make a big version more people saw. Proof of concept totally could fit our space. That said, it's not the main thing people are here for. It's not the only thing people are here for. Don't assume it. Don't count on it. That's not the main plan. It is just not what we're fundamentally mainly about. But you could. Again, we would love to support that if it comes up. Realistically, I would not think primarily about that. We are mostly a space of people who just, they want to make games. They want to make the games they want to make. They don't want to have the stresses and commercial pressures. They don't want to be stressing about running out of runway, burning through savings. They want to sustainably making games together in a fashion that throughout the year they can do whatever they're interested in, pick the projects they want. They're not feeling stuck on the wrong team or with the wrong teammates. They can change their minds. They can pivot. They can plan. They can get feedback. They have space to learn and try things. That's the space we're trying to facilitate here in DevPods, and we want to continue to iterate and improve on. And this is very much where, again, we're going through an active reinvention. Even though I've been running this sort of stuff now professionally as my main job for a decade, and before that for 10 years for student college clubs, Tim is involved with me as we're reinventing what this is and the shape it takes. We're going to continue evolving it based on the needs of who shows up. And when you're looking at a group like this, don't think of it as just this. It's not as if you're like, you go to Starbucks, you order a coffee, they hand you a coffee, and everyone's getting the same thing. This group will be different because you're in it. Which games get made? What happens on those games? It's going to matter that it's you. Your interests, your strengths, your energy, your focus, the things that your own goals are going to help shape what happens in it. And this also includes, again, at the meta level of the things we are doing for our group is we're feeling out, okay, based on who's showing up here, and we're having conversations. I'm encouraging people to schedule calls, just chat with me. I can't sustain that forever, so as we grow, may not be able to do it forever. The current scale can do, want you to schedule time. Of course, fewer times into this November because of Thanksgiving coming up, family time travel. But outside of that, I like to get to know people making this stuff. I design my life around doing this because I like connecting people who are at this stage and phase of making games, whether it's for fun, whether it's for portfolio, whether it is, there's a game they've always had inside them they want to kind of like do some stepping stones to make progress towards being able to better realize someday. So that all the stuff they're doing is in the second, third iteration and draft of things they've been learning. You know, the other way that sort of can also be useful, and so this can think of different models of these groups over the years. Elsinore, I don't know if you heard of it. It's a cool game up on Steam. That team of indies, it was also it was a crowdfunded game. They met in one of our game clubs. And that was, again, Carnegie Mellon Game Creation Society many years ago. That was not a game they did in our community, in that club. That was a game where they met each other on club games and figured out that Katie and Connor and these other people work together real well. They like the way they communicate. They like their skill set. They like their way they just coordinate. They just meshed real well. So then they went together and did a commercial pitch of an unrelated thing for crowdfunding. And again, another way to look at our kind of group is really a way to kind of like test drive working with different teammates. Who do I get along with? Whose style compatible with mine? Takes this risk factor. If you ever tried to hire strangers off the internet, you're throwing money into a big bet and they may not come back because you don't know their vibe, you don't know how to work with them, etc. We've had a few people in our groups, and again, not guaranteed, not the main strategy. Please don't join just for this main reason. Who their first time getting paid for game dev was they worked on games in our freeware community over the years. Then when someone in our group went on later and they wanted to hire someone for sound, for music, for art, for programming, whatever, they reached out to like, oh man, you know, you and I did that hobby project together. They know they have trust. They know how to have backstory. They know they're working with. It takes a lot of that gamble out. You can kind of think of it as a way to test drive collaborators. That reminds me too of one of the reasons why people spend so much money going or rearranging their lives for these grad school programs and games. Something's clear. I'm not trying to bash on academia. Again, I was a PhD student before I forked my life to do this. Forked off the main path. But that's something where one reason we'll do that, you talk to a lot of people who went to these games programs in college, undergrad or grad you like. You're like, what's your favorite class? What was the most useful thing you did there? They'll say it was the class, the semester or two, the student capstone project or the lab, studio, whatever, where the teacher basically said, hey, everybody, I'm going to put you up some teams. You got your game due at the end of December or at the end of May or whatever. I'm around if you got questions, figure it out together. And between the internet resources out there, between trial and error, between asking each other, they can solve so much. And they're not being directed or put on rails. And that is the most enriching thing they get from that experience. It's where they learn the most. It's what stuff sticks the most. It's stuff they're most proud to show. We've tried to create a space for that for anybody in the world who may not be in a situation financially or in terms of life flexibility to go attend one of those programs to benefit from something like that we operate online as DevPodGG. So if any of this sounds like it's a fit for you, if it helps solve your situations, please join us. We'd love to have you with us again. It will be a better, different group because you are in it. And if you're catching this video at the time of late November, you might find a special offer on the page for Black Friday stuff. Check it out sooner or later. Again, throughout the year, we'll try to do everything we can to make it affordable while we're still maintaining a high level of quality and looking after stuff. And continually, this is a priority for Tim and I, making this group as good as it can be for everybody. So hopefully this all makes sense to you. And that's it again. If it doesn't, if you are finding you have teammates who are finishing stuff together, if you are releasing games and it's working out great for you, if you're doing longer term projects and you're scheduling stuff just fine, hell, if you're making games professionally and it's paying off great for you, love it. Great. I probably like your games. Like, that's good. This is not for everybody. That's fine. If this solves challenges you have, join us in DevPodGG. We'd love to connect you to other people with the same kind of challenge. And Tim and I will keep doing everything we can to keep bringing you more great teammates, more great projects to work on, help get people on board to get on the same page to constructively collaborate, building what they want to do the way they want to do it. That's what DevPod's about. It's a bit of a behind the scenes tour. Hope it's helped to answer questions, the main stuff. Again, Tim's probably going to have a better video than I do about this sort of thing that's maybe not as wordy. But that's the gist. That's the main stuff. Hopefully you'll see us in there. Yeah, check out DevPodGG for more information. I look forward to building games together. Have a good one.